My name is Deborah. I'm 42 years old. 3 days ago, I walked out of my house for the last time, leaving behind my paralyzed husband of 15 years. And what I did next, well, it changed everything. I packed one suitcase, took our joint savings, and I never looked back. Some people would call me a monster. They'd say I abandoned a helpless man who needed me. But before I tell you what I did, you need to know why I had no choice. You need to understand what those 5 years of caregiving really cost me. And trust me, by the time I'm done telling you this story, you'll understand why I don't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. David and I met when I was 25. God, I was so young, so naive, so desperate to be loved. He was charming, successful, 8 years older than me. He made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We got married within a year, and for a while, I thought I'd found my fairytale ending. He was my person, you know? The one I'd come home to, the one I'd share my dreams with, the one I thought I'd grow old with. But life has a twisted sense of humor, doesn't it? 10 years into our marriage, David was in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light and T-boned his car. The doctors said it was a miracle he survived. But David was left paralyzed from the waist down. In one moment, everything changed. And I made a vow right there in that hospital room, with him hooked up to machines, tears streaming down both our faces. I promised him I would take care of him. I would be there. I would never leave him. And I meant it. God help me, I meant every word. I quit my job as a marketing manager. We couldn't afford full-time care, and David didn't want strangers in the house anyway. So I became his nurse, his caregiver, his everything. I learned how to help him bathe, how to manage his medications, how to transfer him from bed to wheelchair. I woke up 3 times a night to help him adjust positions to prevent bed sores. I sacrificed my career, my friendships, my entire life to care for this man. And looking back now, all the signs were there. I just didn't see them until it was almost too late. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays were grocery days. I'd just gotten back from the store, arms loaded with bags, when I heard crying coming from the living room. But it wasn't David. It was a woman's voice. Young. Terrified. I dropped the groceries and rushed inside. There she was. Sitting on my couch. A girl who couldn't have been more than 23, 24 years old. Her mascara was running down her face in black rivers. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the tissue I'd apparently left on the coffee table. Her lip was split and bleeding. There was a bruise forming on her left cheek, angry and purple. "Who are you?" I asked, my heart pounding. "What happened to you?" She looked up at me with these wide, terrified eyes and whispered, "You're Deborah, aren't you? David's wife." My blood ran cold. How did this girl know my name? How did she know David? "Please," she sobbed, grabbing my hand. "Please don't call the police. Please. He'll kill me if you call the police. He said he would. He has connections. He'll make sure I disappear." I was confused, my mind racing. Who? Who said that? What are you talking about? And that's when she said his name. David. My husband. My paralyzed, helpless husband who I'd been caring for like a saint for 5 years. She told me everything. How she'd met him online 6 months ago. How he'd seemed so sweet, so vulnerable, so in need of companionship. How she'd felt sorry for him, this poor disabled man with an overworked wife who didn't have time for him. How he'd invited her over when I was out running errands. How what started as friendly visits turned into something else. Something darker. "He's not paralyzed," she whispered, and the room started spinning around me. "What?" "He can walk, Deborah. He can walk. I've seen him. When you're not here, he gets up. He walks around. He. She couldn't finish the sentence, dissolving into fresh sobs. And when she told me what he did, something inside me snapped. See, Here's what you need to understand. The abuse didn't start when David became paralyzed. It started long before that. But back then, it was subtle. So subtle I convinced myself I was imagining things. It started with little comments. That dress makes you look bigger than you are. Maybe you should skip dessert tonight. My ex-girlfriend never needed this much attention. Small cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. I'd laugh it off, tell myself he was just being honest, that he wanted me to be my best self. Then came the isolation. He didn't like my friends. They were bad influences. They were jealous of our relationship. One by one, I stopped seeing them. It was easier than fighting about it. My family. Well, David thought they were toxic and didn't understand our love. So I saw them less and less, until holidays became awkward obligations I dreaded. The worst incident before the accident happened at a dinner party with his colleagues. I'd made a joke, something harmless, something that got a laugh from the table. But on the drive home, David's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His jaw clenched. And when we got home, he grabbed me by the arm so hard it left fingerprints that lasted for days. "Don't you ever embarrass me like that again," he hissed in my face. "Do you understand me?" I tried to leave once. Packed a bag, called my sister. But David found out. He cried. He begged. He promised to change. He said he'd been under so much stress at work, that he loved me more than anything, that he couldn't live without me. And like a fool, I stayed. Then came the accident. And suddenly, David was the victim. Everyone felt sorry for him. For us. I was the devoted wife, the angel who stayed by her suffering husband's side. The pressure to be perfect, to be grateful I still had him, to never complain was crushing. How could I tell anyone that sometimes, late at night, I resented him? That I mourned the life I'd given up? That I felt trapped? I couldn't. So I smiled. I endured. I sacrificed everything. But nothing prepared me for what she told me next, because it involved a child. The girl's name was Emma. And as she sat there in my living room, shaking and broken, she told me about David's daughter. A daughter I didn't know existed. A daughter from a previous relationship he'd never mentioned. A daughter who was now 15 years old. "He's been sending her messages," Emma whispered. "Inappropriate messages. I saw them on his phone. That's why I confronted him today. That's why he..." She touched her bruised cheek and started crying again. I felt rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced. White-hot, blinding rage. This man. This pathetic, lying, abusive man who I'd been bathing, feeding, caring for like a helpless infant. He could walk. He'd been walking this entire time. Playing me. Using me. Abusing other women. And now, a child. Where is he now? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Upstairs. In the bedroom. He thinks I left through the back door. I looked at this broken girl on my couch. This girl who could have been me 10 years ago. This girl who he'd manipulated and hurt. And I made a decision. "Emma," I said quietly, "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded, uncertain. "Good. Because I'm about to show you exactly who David really is. And then we're going to make sure he never hurts anyone ever again." In that moment, I came up with a plan so crazy, she thought I'd lost my mind. I told Emma to wait in the kitchen. To stay quiet. To record everything on her phone if things went badly. Then I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my heart hammering against my ribs. David was in bed, right where I'd left him that morning. Propped up on pillows, laptop open, looking completely helpless. He smiled when he saw me. That same charming smile that had made me fall in love with him 17 years ago. "Hey, sweetheart," he said warmly. "How was the grocery store?" I wanted to vomit. Instead, I smiled back. "It was fine. Listen, I need to talk to you about something." "Of course." "What's going on?" He closed his laptop, giving me his full attention. The devoted husband. The poor disabled man who depended on his saintly wife. I sat on the edge of the bed, forcing my voice to stay steady. I ran into Jennifer at the store today. You remember Jennifer, right? From your office? I watched his face carefully. There was the tiniest flicker of something. Concern? Fear? Jennifer? Yeah, I think so. Why? She mentioned something strange. She said she saw you at a coffee shop last month. Walking. Without your wheelchair. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. David's expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. Dead. Like a shark's. Deborah, he said slowly, Jennifer must be confused. You know I can't walk. The doctors were very clear about that. Were they? I tilted my head. Because I've been thinking. 5 years, David. 5 years I've been taking care of you. Sacrificing everything. And you know what's strange? Your medical records. I was looking through them the other day. That was a lie. But I needed to see his reaction. The prognosis wasn't as definitive as you made it sound. The doctors said you might regain some function with intensive physical therapy. But you refused physical therapy, didn't you? You said it was too painful, too difficult. You said you'd rather just accept your condition. David's jaw clenched. What are you getting at, Deborah? I'm getting at the fact that I think you've been lying to me. My voice was shaking now, anger bleeding through. I think you can walk. I think you've been able to walk for a while now. And I think you've been using me as your personal servant while you. And that's when he raised his hand to hit me. But he didn't know who he was dealing with. I caught his wrist mid-swing. His standing wrist. Because David had lunged out of that bed faster than I'd ever seen anyone move. He was on his feet, towering over me, his face twisted with rage. You stupid bitch, he snarled. You couldn't just keep your mouth shut and be grateful, could you? All those years. All those sleepless nights. All those times I'd helped him to the bathroom, bathed him, dressed him, fed him. And he could walk. He could walk the entire time. I stumbled backward, and he advanced on me. But I'd prepared for this. I'd left the bedroom door open. I'd positioned myself strategically. Emma. I screamed. Call 911, now. David froze. His eyes widened. What did you? Emma appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, camera recording. I already called them, she said, her voice stronger than before. They're on their way. David's face went from rage to panic in seconds. It was almost comical. He tried to drop back into the wheelchair, to play the victim again, but it was too late. Emma had been recording for the past 5 minutes. Everything was on video. You set me up, David said, looking at me with such hatred it made my skin crawl. You planned this. No, I said coldly. You set yourself up the moment you decided to fake a disability and abuse the woman who loved you. That's when he changed tactics. Suddenly, he was crying. Begging. Saying he was sick, that he needed help, that the accident had traumatized him psychologically, that he'd made mistakes but he could change. I love you, Deborah, he sobbed. Please. Please don't do this. Think about our marriage. Think about everything we've been through together. I almost laughed. Almost. Our marriage. David, our marriage died the moment you decided to manipulate me. To use me. To abuse me. The police arrived within 10 minutes. But before they did, David made one last desperate attempt. He called his brother, Marcus. Put him on speakerphone. Marcus, David said, his voice panicked. Deborah's having some kind of mental breakdown. She's accusing me of crazy things. She's brought some strange woman into our house. I think she's trying to hurt me. I need you to come over here right now, Anne. I grabbed the phone from his hand. Marcus, this is Deborah. Your brother has been faking his paralysis for 5 years. He's been walking this entire time. He's been abusing women behind my back. And the police are on their way to arrest him for assault and fraud. If you want to help him, you better get a good lawyer." I hung up. David stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "You're going to regret this," he whispered. "You have no idea what you've just done. My family will destroy you. They have money. They have lawyers. You'll be left with nothing." "I already have nothing," I said quietly. "You made sure of that. You took 5 years of my life. You took my career, my friends, my self-respect. So no, David. I don't think I'm going to regret this at all." And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, his family got involved. The police took our statements. They saw the video Emma had recorded. They saw David standing, walking, moving without any difficulty. They took him to the station for questioning, and I thought, finally, this nightmare was over. I was wrong. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at my door with a lawyer and David's mother, Patricia. Patricia, who had always looked down on me, who had always thought her precious son had married beneath him, who had made my life hell for 15 years. "Deborah," Patricia said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We need to talk about David." I didn't let them in. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "There's nothing to talk about. He lied. He manipulated me. He assaulted Emma. The police have all the evidence they need." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "Evidence? You mean the video that woman took?" "Deborah, that proves nothing. David was clearly having a psychological episode. The trauma from the accident caused him to have a temporary moment of mobility. It happens. The doctors can confirm it." I stared at him. "You're joking." "We're not joking," the lawyer said smoothly. "In fact, we're prepared to file a lawsuit against you for abandonment and emotional distress. David is a disabled man who depends on you for care. You left him alone for 3 days. That's criminal neglect. We could have you arrested." My blood ran cold. They were twisting everything, making me the villain. "Furthermore," the lawyer continued, "we have reason to believe you've been suffering from caregiver burnout and possible mental health issues. We have testimonies from neighbors who've heard you crying, who've seen you looking distressed. We think you need help, Deborah. Psychiatric help." Oh my God. They were trying to have me committed. They were trying to paint me as crazy. Patricia stepped forward, her eyes cold. "If you drop all charges against David and come back home to care for him properly, we won't pursue legal action. We'll even get you the help you need. Therapy. Medication. Whatever it takes. And if I don't?" Marcus smiled. "Then we destroy you. We have resources you can't even imagine. We'll make sure you lose everything. Your reputation. Your savings. Your freedom. By the time we're done, you'll wish you'd never been born." I felt the walls closing in. They were going to win. They always won. People like them, with money and power and connections, they always won. But they didn't know I was already 1 step ahead. "That's interesting," I said calmly. "Because I've spent the last 2 days doing some research of my own." I pulled out a folder from behind the door. A thick folder. "Did you know that David's been collecting disability benefits for the past 5 years? Federal benefits. That's fraud, Marcus. That's a felony. And I have documentation of every single payment. Every single lie he told to Social Security. Every forged doctor's note." Marcus's smile faltered. "And Patricia," I turned to her. "Did you know your son has been running a scam? He's been posing as a disabled veteran on online dating sites, soliciting money from sympathetic women. I have screenshots. I have bank records. I have testimonies from 6 different women who he conned out of thousands of dollars." Patricia's face went white. "And as for Emma," I continued, "she's not the only one. I found 4 other women. 4 other women he assaulted. For other women who were too scared to come forward because he threatened them. But they're ready to testify now. Especially when they heard about the messages he was sending to his 15-year-old daughter. The lawyer tried to interrupt. Mrs. Peterson, these are serious accusations that I can prove. I cut him off. Every single one. I have evidence. I have witnesses. I have documentation. And I've already sent everything to the district attorney's office. David isn't just looking at assault charges anymore. He's looking at fraud, identity theft, extortion, harassment of a minor, and about a dozen other felonies. Marcus took a step back. You're bluffing. Am I? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Try me. Go ahead. File your lawsuit. Have me arrested. See what happens when all of this becomes public record. See how your family's reputation holds up when everyone finds out what David really is. I looked each of them in the eye. You want to destroy me? Go ahead and try. But I promise you, I will drag David through every courtroom, every newspaper, every news station in this state. By the time I'm done, everyone will know exactly what kind of monster your family protected. The silence was deafening. Finally, Patricia spoke, her voice shaking. What do you want? I want a divorce. Uncontested. I want half of everything we own. I want David to pay restitution to every woman he scammed. I want him to surrender his parental rights and stay away from his daughter. And I want a written confession of everything he did to me over the past 15 years. That's insane, Marcus started. That's merciful, I interrupted. Because the alternative is prison. 20 years, minimum. Is that what you want for your son, Patricia? Your brother, Marcus? They looked at each other. The lawyer whispered something to them. They argued in hushed tones. Finally, Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face. Fine. We'll give you what you want. Good, I said. You have 24 hours to draw up the papers. And one more thing. If any of you ever contact me again, if you ever threaten me, if you even look at me wrong, every single piece of evidence I have goes public. Are we clear? They left without another word. And that's when the real victim walked into the room. Emma had been standing in the hallway the entire time, listening. When David's family left, she came out, her eyes wide with something like awe. You were amazing, she whispered. No, I said, suddenly exhausted. I was just done being a victim. Over the next few weeks, everything fell into place. David signed the divorce papers. The district attorney pressed charges. The other women came forward. David's daughter was placed with her mother, safe from his manipulation. David took a plea deal, 15 years in prison. He'll be 62 when he gets out. His disability benefits were revoked. He has to pay back every penny, plus fines and restitution. His family cut him off completely. Patricia released a statement saying she was horrified and heartbroken by her son's actions. Marcus refused to comment. The lawyer disappeared. As for me, I got my settlement. Half of everything, which turned out to be quite a lot since David had been hiding money in offshore accounts for years. I bought a small house in a different state. Started therapy. Started rebuilding my life. Emma stayed in touch. She's doing better now. Got a new job, started dating someone kind. She calls me sometimes, just to talk. Says I saved her life. But honestly, she saved mine too. If she hadn't shown up that day, I might have spent the rest of my life taking care of a man who didn't need me, who didn't love me, who saw me as nothing more than a convenience. I won't lie and say everything's perfect now. I still have nightmares. I still have moments where I second-guess myself, where I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have tried harder to make it work. 15 years of abuse doesn't just disappear overnight. But then I remember that moment. The moment when David stood up out of that bed and raised his hand to hit me. The moment when the mask finally slipped and I saw him for what he really was. And I remember that I had a choice. I could keep playing the victim, or I could fight back. I chose to fight. And you know what? For the first time in 15 years, I can breathe. I can sleep through the night without waking up in a panic, wondering if David needs something. I can eat meals without someone criticizing every bite. I can see my friends, talk to my family, live my own life. I'm 42 years old. Some people would say I wasted my best years on a man who didn't deserve me. But I don't see it that way. Those years taught me something valuable. They taught me my own strength. They taught me that I can survive anything. They taught me that no matter how trapped you feel, there's always a way out, you just have to be brave enough to take it. Stay until the end because I'm about to tell you the only thing every victim needs to hear. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not imagining things. If someone makes you feel small, if someone isolates you from the people who love you, if someone uses your compassion against you, that is abuse. It doesn't matter if they're disabled, if they're sick, if they're going through a hard time. Abuse is abuse is abuse. And you deserve better. You deserve to be loved without conditions. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to take up space in this world without apologizing for it. You deserve to be happy. It took me 15 years to learn that lesson. Don't let it take you that long. If you're in an abusive relationship right now, please know this. Leaving is the hardest thing you'll ever do. People won't understand. They'll judge you. They'll say you should have tried harder, should have been more patient, should have given them another chance. Ignore them. You know your truth. You know what you've endured. You know what it costs you every single day to stay. And only you can decide when enough is enough. But when you do decide to leave, and I hope you do, know that you're not alone. There are people who will believe you. There are people who will help you. There are people who will remind you that you are worth saving. Emma was one of those people for me. She was the wake-up call I needed. The proof that David's abuse wasn't about me being inadequate or difficult or crazy. It was about him. His need for control. His inability to see women as human beings instead of objects to manipulate. And realizing that set me free. I don't know what the future holds. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of being David's wife, David's caregiver, David's victim. Some days are harder than others. Some days I still catch myself thinking I need to check on him, need to make sure he's okay, need to put his needs before my own. But then I remember, he's not my responsibility anymore. He never really was. He made his choices, and now he's facing the consequences. And me. I'm finally making my own choices. Where to live. What to do. Who to be. For the first time in 15 years, my life is mine. And I'm never giving that away again. To anyone watching this who's going through something similar, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a partner, a friend, please hear me. Your pain is real. Your struggle is valid. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Save yourself. Choose yourself. Fight for yourself. Because you are worth fighting for. My name is Deborah. I'm 42 years old. 3 days ago, I walked out on my paralyzed husband and started my life over. And I would do it again in a heartbeat.